everyone, and welcome to another video. This is going to be my second half of this month's pickup, so everything I got in the second half of May. And before I get into them, showing them off, I just want to say thank you so much. I'm now over 1,300 subscribers, which is huge. I know I don't always make the most highly polished videos, and I don't always really make videos on time or like very frequently, and I never really started out doing this to gain a large number of subscribers, but having gotten to this point after 2 years is phenomenal. Like, that's crazy. I never would have ever thought that I would make it to this point. So thank you guys so much. I'm so glad you guys seem to enjoy my videos. It's really appreciated, and yeah, it means a lot. So thank you, and I hope you will enjoy this video. I will, again, like always, try to keep it short, but we'll see how well that goes. And yeah, I'll get straight into it. First up, we have Yenon's release of Your Name by Makoto Shinkai. This is the novel adaptation of his film of the same name, and I loved this. It was very poetic. I really enjoyed the translation work in this particular novel. I am a fan of Shinkai's films, but I do think that previously I've been more so an aesthetic fan of his, necessarily as like a overall film writer, just because a lot of his films are very similar themed and have the same similar tropes going on in them, which is not a bad thing, but there's only so much wistful sadness of teenagers one person can handle. But he does execute it brilliantly. But in saying that, this film, Your Name, or the film that this is an adaptation of, is by far my favorite of his movies. It is wonderful. If you have the chance to see it in cinemas, I urge you to go see it, because the cinema experience really does lend itself to this movie. But as for this particular novel, it's very short. It's only about 180 pages. You can get through it in an afternoon if you're a quick reader. If you're a slower reader, you know, a day, a couple days. It's not a rush or not a race, but it is beautiful to read. Very poetic. The translation work is really spot on with this, in the tone and the rhythm of actually reading it, how the sentences are constructed, which I am pretty certain is very good in capturing how Shinkai writes his stuff. So I am glad that Yenon did such a good job. It is a hardcover release, so if that makes you happy, then pick it up, because this is really it's not the newest story, of course, but it is done incredibly well. And yeah, if you're a fan of the film, I definitely recommend you pick this one up. Yenon did a great job. Next, we have Pandora Hearts Volume 14. This is obviously one of many volumes I still need for the completion of this series. There's 24 volumes in all. I have only read the first 10 because that's all I had up until this point, and I won't be reading this particular volume for a while because I still need to get 11 till 13. But it was very cheap, so I decided to pick it up whilst I could. Nothing really much to say about this particular volume, obviously, because I haven't read it, but I do quite enjoy Pandora Hearts. I'm a big fan of this Victorian-esque inspired steampunk universe that Mochizuki has created for her story, and for all of her stories. I think Case Study of Vanitas has a very similar setting. So if you're a fan of that sort of thing, I do recommend Pandora Hearts. It's a pretty interesting shonen series, somewhat of a I don't really know how to classify this genre-wise. Mystery, maybe? I don't know. But it is very, very good. I've heard it gets even better in the last third of the series. I have it on good recommendation that this series just ups the ante as you continue to read. So I look forward to doing that. Next is the second volume of Kiss and White Lily for My Dearest Girl, Yen Press's first foray into Yuri. As for this particular volume, it does focus on these two characters on the cover here, not so much on the characters we were introduced to in the first volume, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I do think that some series lend itself to large casts and sort of collaborative focus on characters rather than just like having a single character or couple that you follow the entire series. Kano's artwork, again, is very, very lovely. I'm pretty interested in seeing how some characters play into future volumes. I didn't really like the characters in this volume as much as the characters in the last volume, but I think that's just a weakness of this sort of storytelling anyway. That being said, it was done quite well. I do enjoy this and appreciate the series for what it does right in comparison to what it does wrong. It does play with a very familiar setting for Yuri, but I think it does have a bit more teeth to it than some series that are popular, available, currently being released. So yeah, it's pretty solid second volume, and I am looking forward to reading more whenever that may be. Next is volume 7 of Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun by Uzumi Tsubaki, this comedic manga that I absolutely adore. Every single time there's a new volume out, I pretty much read it immediately as I get it. It's so funny. If you're not reading the series yet and you're a fan of gag or comedic manga, I definitely recommend this one. It really does play with the stereotypes and expectations of shoujo manga, whilst not being, it's not cruel about it. It's not, being mean. It's just, observantist and situational comedy rather than, haha, this is funny and everyone who enjoys it is stupid. Which sometimes comedic stuff in general does fall into. That's a different type of comedy, and I've never really been a fan of that, but this series executes its jokes really, really well, and honestly, for a series that you would think would get old pretty fast, because it really does only have a couple of jokes that they continually use, it really doesn't get old. I don't know what it is. Of course it does keep things interesting and does change situations and character reactions and interactions, but in saying that, it is a fairly simple premise but done really, really, really well. I think this is the perfect example of execution being one of the most important things when you're telling a story, because you can have the most original idea in a setting, but if you're not telling it well, then it's not entertaining. But with this series, it's so funny. All of the characters are really, really likable, and yeah, if I do recommend watching the anime as well. Maybe starting with the anime, it gives you better comedic timing for the jokes, but aside from that, go ahead and read it because it is wonderful. Next we have volume 2 of Gangsta Cursed, EP Marco Adriano. This is written by Kosuke, who writes the main gangsta story, but art by Shuhei Kamo. And I actually really, really enjoy this spin-off series. It's not every day that you get spin-off series licensed into English, and usually they're comedic rather than actually focusing on a side character or in a serious way. But in my opinion, I find Marco is definitely one of the most interesting and intriguing characters in the main series. And with this particular series, you see how he goes from a hunter to like his current, how he is now, which is basically a complete 180 for actual character motivations. How you see this change of how somebody can go from believing that Twilights are, you know, not worth, like, don't deserve life and should be killed and aren't human, to someone who is like friendly with Twilights, who actively protects them within their larger society. It's very interesting. So I do really, really enjoy this spin-off. If you're a fan of the main series, I definitely recommend you check this out, especially if you are interested in more Marco stuff, because he is a very good character. Aside from the main trio from the main series, he's probably the character who interests me the most, just with how he operates within the larger plot of the story. So yeah, if that sounds somewhat interesting to you, I recommend you picking this up, because it is really good, and I'm really glad that we're getting more of it. And I hope Kosuke gets better soon, because I really like her work, and I hope we see more Gangsta in the future. Next we have the second volume of Kase-san and, which is Kase-san and Bento. This actual volume focuses on the school trip and a little more on like actually becoming third years in high school. I've said this before, but I really, really, really enjoy this series for being the perfect balance between the two sides of Yuri that you typically see within the market. If you're a Yuri fan and you're not buying this series, I encourage you to try it, because it is really, really good. If you're someone who's interested in Yuri but don't really know where to start, or you sort of a bit like tentatively interested in the genre, this is again a good place to start, because it has the sweet, heartwarming moments of a lot of the like softer, cute Yuri, but it doesn't disregard the reality of like the relationship and high schoolers in a relationship, insofar as like the physical attraction side of it, which is usually covered more so on the side of like quite skeevy Yuri, which I'm not a fan of, but yes, this does it really, really, really well. Kase-san and Yamada are adorable. They actually act like a real couple, and it's good because it does cover the idea that, like, regardless of the other person's perception of yourself, it doesn't change the issues or like insecurities that you have, and that's something that a good relationship works through. Like communication is key, and I think that Kase-san really does, whilst it's not like the most communicated thing in the world, it does actually encourage the two characters to actually speak to each other and confront the issues they have together, which is something that's not always really done well in any sort of romance manga, so I appreciate that Kase-san does that. Plus, it's adorable. Like, guys, the art is so cute. Like, that cover is so cute, but inside it's so cute. You guys, it's so cute. Buy it. It's really good. It's really, really, really good. Next is Gente by Natsume Ono. This is volume 1, volume 2, and volume 3, so it's the complete series. I got this secondhand from a local seller, so I was really happy. I got it for a really, really good price. But this is focusing on the characters of Ristorante Paradiso. So interestingly, this is another spin-off, but it's actually longer than the main series that it was like spawned from. I do really think that this one, if you're a fan of Ristorante Paradiso, this is one to pick up. A lot of these stories in this 3 volume series were adapted into the show, obviously to create more content for the anime series. Um, but yeah, this is one of the final parts of or one of the final works that I needed for my Natsume Ono collection. I do still need one of her one shots, and then uh, House of Five Leaves, which is my next thing to focus on. But yeah, it's really great. I'm a big fan of Ono. I'm sure majority of you guys know if you've watched any of these videos before, and I'm looking forward to finally owning all of her stuff, especially because I've been a fan for a long time, but hadn't really gotten any of her works. I generally borrowed them from the library, so because I'd already read them, I didn't feel the urge to buy them until recently. And now with her new series, Aka 13, being licensed and released by Yen Press, I am so keen for that series. So you will probably see that in a couple months. I think the first volume comes out in November, so 6 months from now we'll be seeing those books in my videos. But yes, Gente is really good. It's one of Viz's older signature releases. Like a lot of Ono's work, same trim size, same translation quality, all good. And if you're a fan, I'm sure you've already read or bought this. So yeah, if you're wanting to get into Ono, this is probably like I don't know, I don't think this is a very good starting point, but if you've only read Ristorante Paradiso, you should read this because it is good and it adds a lot to the main story. Then we have volume 5 of Welcome to the Ballroom by Tomo Takeuchi. This volume ends the arc that we were on and starts the new one. Arc that I'm very interested in. Having personal experience with ballroom dancing, finding a partner is probably the most important step that you can do outside of your own personal development, because obviously ballroom dance is a partner sport. You can't do it as an individual. So choosing the right person to dance with is pretty crucial. You have to have very similar personalities or get on well, have sort of the similar goals and dance styles and understand each other. You have to sort of start as friends and work together in your athletic relationship, I think. And the character who is introduced in this volume really, I think, is probably I'm interested to see how they develop her, because she's a very familiar personality. I've known many people like her in my life, and so I'm interested to see which direction they take with the character. And I am really looking forward to seeing how things get going. The series, as always, is marvelous. If you're not reading this because you are off-put by the idea of a series about ballroom dancing, suck it up, because I'm sure if you try it, you will enjoy it. It's very good. I really applaud Takeuchi's art, because she is able to draw movement so well, which I think is a big, like, it's pretty important for a series like this to understand the flow of movement and how these characters are dancing. And for a medium that is just completely flat, completely still, you get an incredible understanding of the actual steps and dance itself, even without prior knowledge, I think. But it's so beautiful. I really enjoy this series, and you guys should be reading it. With the upcoming anime, I'm hoping more people get interested, because wow, it's so good, and yeah, everyone should read it. Thank you for licensing it and releasing it, Kodansha. It's one of my favorite series currently being released. And finally, for manga, we have one of my most highly anticipated series for this entire year. When it was announced that this got licensed, well, before it got announced it was licensed, I actually found the pre-order on Book Depository, and I nearly screamed. Like, it was amazing. I was so happy. I shared it on Twitter, although I don't know how many people actually follow me on Twitter, so I don't know how many people found out. But when it was formally announced, I was just so excited, just so happy. And that is Descending Stories by Haruko Kumota, or Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju, for those who maybe are more familiar with the anime. I have seen both seasons. That's how I was introduced to this series. And both seasons were probably the best of the year, last year and the year before. At least within the drama category. There was a lot of good shows last year. A lot of good shows. But in saying that, Rakugo Shinju, especially its second season, sort of became an art form in and of itself. Studio Dean animated it, and it was superb. It was phenomenal. I honestly don't think, it's a sort of art that you don't find in any sort of media very often, and I encourage people to read it. This, or watch it, or whatever. This series is 10 volumes long, the first of them, of course. This is the debut in English, but it follows one character throughout his entire life, pretty much, but it is a dialogue on how Rakugo, which is the art of comedic storytelling, sort of develops and changes and like ebbs and dips in popularity over pretty much an entire lifetime. So we're talking pre and post-war, just a huge span of about 60 years, longer possibly. Probably actually. God, it's a huge amount of time is covered in this series. This volume actually, it starts a little bit later than the story's beginning, because you're introduced to Yota, who wants to become a Rakugo storyteller himself after hearing Yakumo's Shinigami routine when he was so Yakumo came to the prison to to tell the Shinigami story, and Yota as a prisoner was amazed, besotted. He just fell in love with the storytelling, the story that was told, the art itself, and just wanted to dedicate his life to becoming a great storyteller like his master. So as an audience, we're introduced to this art form from an outside perspective through Yota, but then we follow more closely with across the series via Yakumo, who is this character on the front. It's a fantastic, I can't even verbalize how much I love this story, because it is really unlike anything else that I've seen in recent years, especially not done to this degree of perfection. And I know that's very, very high praise, but I think if you've seen it or if you're reading it, you will understand what I mean. The story has pretty much everything. The main sort of thread and goal for the main character is trying to reach that pinnacle of perfection, and the god of Rakugo, the god of art, basically. But betrayal, love, death, sadness, birth, everything. It's got everything in this story. Guilt is a huge part of this this story. But most of all, it is really a story of hope. And I don't think I can encourage people enough to read this. And I'm so happy we're getting more josei in English. I've said it before with Princess Jellyfish and Everyone's Getting Married. 3 series that are completely different, but are still within that josei demographic, which really does emphasize like how arbitrary those sort of qualifications are. A good story is a good story, regardless of who's writing it, who it's aimed for, and what it's about. So, yeah, just read this one, guys. It's great. It's wonderful, and it's got a really great cast of characters. I know I say that about everything, but characters are really, really important to me. If your characters fall flat or don't feel genuine, then I find a story can really make or break itself on that. And honestly, I think the main character of this story is probably the most intricate, interesting, just overall fascinating character study. It's a fascinating character study. He's got so many parts to him that by the end of it, you love it's so good. Guys, just read it. I know I've spent the most time on this because it's really important to me, and I hope everyone reads it because I want this series to do well. I feel like this was a big risk for Kodansha to be releasing, and I want that risk to be rewarded because it really does deserve to be so. So, yes. I read it or borrow it from your library or do something, but it's really good. Watch the anime as well. It's on Crunchyroll. Go watch it. Next is Wolfstrain on DVD and Blu-ray, a series I have yet to actually watch, but I did pick it up because it is something I've wanted to watch for years now at this point. Just never really got around to actually sitting down and watching it. But I picked this up because of Amazon's super, super, super low price on it a couple weeks ago, back when they had a whole bunch of stuff on sale. I did pick up a couple other things. One other thing I will show off next, but a couple other titles which will probably be in next week or next month's haul. As for the show itself, I've heard nothing but good things about it. And I do know there are 4 recap episodes somewhere in the middle end tail of it. So I will be sure to sort of avoid those, but I'm looking forward to watching this actually. It seems right up my alley, although it's taken me this long to actually sit down and get it and commit to it. The other thing I got in that Amazon sale was Rage of Bahamut Genesis, a series that I, again, had heard good things about but hadn't actually seen. I've since watched it. I watched it yesterday actually. It's pretty good. Like it's pretty standard like fantasy-esque series, and you can definitely tell from certain elements of it that it is based off of a mobile game. But in saying that, I think Studio Mappa did a really great job with making a mobile game into a actual story and having proper arcs and characters that you like, and it's done really well. I can see why this was such a popular series during its run. I know the second season is currently being released, but I have not yet started that, obviously, because I literally just finished this one. But yeah, Rage of Bahamut was pretty good, and I did want to watch it because I am very curious about Mappa's work. I've enjoyed everything that the studio has done so far. Punchline is not my favorite, but it is still pretty interesting, and like I've said before, I can appreciate studios that can, make something a little bit different and take risks. And I think this was definitely a risk, and it worked well for them. So I do look forward to seeing more. I will be watching the second season sometime. Not right now, but sometime. So yeah, I'm glad that I was given the opportunity to actually watch this, and obviously it doesn't want to stand up, so I'll just go to the next thing. Next we have My Hero Academia Season 1 in the DVD and Blu-ray box set. This is the Australian release, which is identical to the UK release. The only difference was the writing logos, which was on this like cardboard obi thing. And it is a pretty similar match to the US version. The main difference being, of course, it is a wider box because using 14mm cases, and the cover art for both of these are identical. It's basically just this. So that is a little bit sad, and there's no inside artwork either for the Blu-ray cases. But considering the exchange rate and a bunch of different factors, I decided to just buy it locally. I do really enjoy this series. Again, one that I think needs no real introduction, especially considering the second season is currently airing. Another one that I haven't started yet, but hope to get to somewhat soon, probably sooner than Rage of Bahamut. But yeah, I really enjoy this show. I think Bones was a good choice for the studio to adapt this series. Animation is glorious. And I think it's smart that they actually have decided to do smaller arcs for their series now. It's I find it's very rare to really find all that many Shonen Jump properties have long ongoing adaptations, unlike, you know, the Inuyasha, Naruto, and One Piece's, which were so much more common in the early 2000s. Possibly that's not 100% true. I know World Trigger was sort of long-running, ongoing, but like Haikyuu, My Hero Academia, and a bunch of other stuff. Well, maybe their stronger titles, more popular titles, are getting shorter, more concise, more accurate adaptations. Lower quantity episodes, higher quality animation, that sort of thing. I don't know. I am not within the industry, so I have no idea. But I feel that's the way that Jump is heading. In saying that, great show. Again, a very familiar premise, but done really well. Execution is everything, as I said before. And yeah, just really likable, very fun, funny, a great main character. Yeah, it's good. It's really good. So I don't think I need to encourage people to watch it, but if you haven't checked this one out and you're a fan of superhero stories, even if you're not, I think this one does it really well. And I know a lot of people get sort of tired of the high school setting, but at least in this series it actually lends itself to that. It adds another element to the story rather than just being like an arbitrary, oh well, they're teenagers so they have to go to school. Like it's actually pretty crucial part of the setting and the plot. So anyway, My Hero Academia, very fun, and I'm glad to own it on Blu-ray and DVD. And finally, for anime, we have long time coming, free Iwatobi Swim Club. This is Crunchyroll and Funimation's joint release for this series with the dub that Crunchyroll paid for, basically. A series that I really enjoy. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you should probably be able to tell that I am quite a big fan of this series. I think it gets a lot of undeserving criticism just because it's a show made for girls that Kyoto Animation did. Because it wasn't pandering to their normal market that they pander to. But I appreciate Free a whole lot because it really did change the market in very positive ways for female fans. Not everyone would agree with me on that point, but I don't care. And this show really does have more to it than I think just fan service for girls, whether that be like, oh, it's just Fujo pandering, or oh, it's got pretty boys, so of course girls will like it. It does actually have a lot more and a more developed plot than a lot of like female pandering shows. I've seen female pandering shows, and Free is like by far one of the best that there is. Like, I have seen some trash that is just made to appeal to the female buyer, and Free is not it, guys. Like, of course, I don't think I need to introduce anyone to this series. It follows a bunch of high schoolers who are trying to start a swim club at their high school and reconnect with a childhood friend who is sort of they were estranged from. And it's fun. It's fun. It's got a lot of like very positive feelings. The characters are funny and likable. The second season is better, in my opinion, by like several degrees. But the first season isn't bad. Like, that doesn't mean that the first season is bad. And it's been a long time waiting for this series on Blu-ray, because we did get a DVD-only subtitle release by Discotek back when, before the Crunchyroll and Funimation merger, partnership, whatever you want to call it. I'm just glad that it finally was released, and now I can own both on Blu-ray and watch them whenever I want. I cannot comment on the dub because I have not seen it, and I probably never will see it because I just love the seiyuu chosen for this series way, way, way too much. I am very biased like that. But yeah, very, very good show. Very fun. Don't let naysayers tell you it's awful if they haven't seen it, because don't form opinions unless, like, don't form your opinion on someone else's opinion. Just make a decision for yourself. You can use other people's opinions as like a guidepost, but don't just blatantly disregard something because, you know, you think you might not like it. You'd be surprised. Like, majority of the guys that I know who have seen this show actually really like it a lot. And are like, this is such a good show. I don't know why people are like, oh, it's just for girls and it's fucking gay, so it's obviously bad. No. People, no. Just... But I shouldn't get angry at immature people. So yes, Free Iwatobi Swim Club, a series I really, really enjoy, and I'm happy to finally own the set for it. And here's hoping that we see the movie sometime in the next 10 years, because that is another great, great, great part of this franchise, and I can't wait for Funimation to release it whenever they do, because I'd like to have an official subtitled version. I have the Japanese version, but that doesn't have subtitles. So, yeah. Any day now, Funimation, I'm waiting with money. Well, that's everything that I got for the second half of May. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sorry if this got too long, again, but I try. I actually really do try. But, well, just too much to talk about. Too much to get through. So, yes. I will have some more videos coming in the future, in particular ones going over certain parts of the collection, so look forward to that. If you have made it through my full manga and or anime collection videos, you are a stronger person than I. That, like, congratulations, that's huge. Nobody should commit themselves to that. But if you have, then thank you very much. There's a lot of work went into those. But yes, so I will see you in the next video, guys. Bye till then, and I hope you enjoy what you're reading, enjoy what you're watching, and continue to do so. Bye.